The Lamborghini's engine ticked in the desert silence, cooling after 2 hours of pushing 180 on empty highway. Marcus Chen killed the ignition and stepped out into the Nevada night, his Italian loafers crunching on gravel that hadn't been swept since the Clinton administration. 2 a.m. Highway 95, middle of nowhere. The Chevron station's fluorescent lights buzzed like dying insects, casting sickly yellow pools across cracked concrete. Marcus stretched, rolling his shoulders beneath his $500 black tee, $40 million richer as of 72 hours ago, and the world felt like it was finally catching up to what he'd always known about himself. Before we begin, besties, please don't forget to like and subscribe. This is your only way of supporting us, as we also promise to bring you interesting and hooking stories every single day. Also, tell me in the comments section where you are watching from and what time it is there. I want to know how my story of love has traveled. He was untouchable. That's when he heard it. The deep mechanical growl of something built for violence. A jet-black Kawasaki H2 rolled up to the far pump, murdered out, no chrome, no badges, just predatory matte carbon fiber that seemed to absorb light. The rider killed the engine and swung off in one fluid motion. Marcus forgot about his own tank. She was tall, black, curves wrapped in full riding leathers that fit like they'd been custom-stitched to her body. Dark braids spilled from beneath her helmet as she pulled it off, and even from 30 feet away, Marcus could see the kind of face that made men stupid. No patches on the jacket, no crew, just her. He'd closed $40 million deals with less confidence than he felt walking across that gas station lot. "That's a serious machine," he said, leaning against her pump with the smile that had opened 1,000 doors. "You race or you just look good on it?" She didn't glance up from the fuel display. Both. Her voice was smoke and honey, bored in a way that suggested she'd heard better lines from better men. Marcus laughed, undeterred. "Let me buy you a drink. I know a spot in Vegas." "Pass." "Come on, I'm a nice guy." Now she looked at him. Dark eyes. Steady. Amused in the way a cat is amused by a mouse that doesn't know it's being hunted. "I'm sure you are." She capped the tank with one gloved hand, swung her leg over the bike like she was mounting a warhorse, and thumbed the ignition. 1,200 cubic centimeters of fury roared to life. No name, no number, no backward glance, just the scream of an engine built for speed disappearing into the black desert night, tail lights swallowed by distance in seconds. Marcus stood there, fuel nozzle forgotten in his hand, watching empty highway. For the first time in years, maybe ever, someone had said no. And God help him, he wanted more. He didn't know it yet, but that want would cost him everything, and save him in ways he couldn't imagine. 2 nights later, Marcus found himself in the industrial guts of Las Vegas, where the neon died and concrete warehouses squatted like tombstones under a moonless sky. The underground race scene wasn't hard to find if you had money and no sense. Marcus had both. Cars lined the cracked asphalt lot in tribal formations. JDM tuners, American muscle, European exotics. Engines revved in warning calls. Cash moved in duffel bags between men who didn't ask names and didn't give receipts. The air tasted like high-octane fuel and bad decisions. Marcus loved it. He was leaning against his Lamborghini, half listening to some kid brag about his Supra's dyno numbers, when he saw her. Same woman, same leathers. Standing near the pit with her arms crossed, watching the chaos like a general surveying a battlefield she'd already won. His heart kicked harder than any launch control. He didn't think, just moved. Crossed the lot in 10 seconds flat, weaving through crews and cash counters until he was right there, blocking her path with his body and that $1 million smile. "Twice in 1 week," he said. "That's fate, right?" She tilted her head, dark eyes flat. "Or bad luck." "Come on, let me at least get your name." "No." She stepped left. He mirrored her. "What's the harm in—" "Move." She tried to step past him, and Marcus, cocky, careless Marcus, grabbed her wrist. Not hard, not violent, just firm, possessive. The way he'd grabbed 100 wrists in 100 clubs when women played hard to get. Her expression didn't change, but her phone rang. She answered it, put it on speaker with her free hand, eyes never leaving his face. A voice filled the space between them, deep, Russian accented, calm in the way apex predators are calm when they've already decided your prey. Ayana. Problem? The name landed like a blade. She glanced down at Marcus's hand still wrapped around her wrist, then back up. Just a boy who doesn't understand boundaries, Dmitri. Silence on the line, the kind that has weight. Then the voice hardened into something colder than Siberian winter. Put him on. She held the phone toward Marcus. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but his hand was still on her wrist, and his pride was louder than his survival instinct. He took the phone. Hello? You flirted with the wrong black woman. The words were ice picks through his sternum. She is my daughter. You have 24 hours to convince her you are not a waste of oxygen. Do not make me come find you. The line went dead. Marcus stood frozen, phone in one hand, her wrist still in the other. The warehouse noise faded to white static. Somewhere in the rational part of his brain, the part that had built algorithms and closed deals, a name surfaced from 1,000 whispered warnings. Dmitry Volkov, Russian Bratva, 6-state operation, the man federal agencies had been hunting for a decade. Ayana looked down at his hand, then up at him. Her smile was a scalpel. You gonna let go? She said softly. Or do I need to make you? Marcus dropped her wrist like it was burning. She stepped past him, close enough that he could smell leather and gunpowder and something darker he couldn't name. 24 hours, she whispered. Clock's ticking. Then she was gone, swallowed by the crowd. And Marcus Chen, tech millionaire, untouchable playboy, master of his universe, realized for the first time in his life what it felt like to be prey. Marcus didn't sleep. He spent the night in his penthouse with every screen lit, fingers flying across keyboards, digging into corners of the dark web he usually avoided. Dmitry Volkov wasn't hard to find if you knew where to look. Federal indictments that never stuck, shell corporations spanning 6 states, a Bratva network so deeply embedded in legitimate business that prosecutors couldn't tell where the crime ended and commerce began, and Ayana Kane, street name Reaper. The search results were sparse, just ghost stories whispered on encrypted forums, a Detroit runaway at 16, bare-knuckle circuit fighter. Then nothing for 2 years until she surfaced in Nevada as Volkov's right hand, not his mistress, not his muscle, his enforcer, his strategist, his heir, legally adopted, trained in everything that mattered in their world, combat, negotiation, logistics, fear. Marcus stared at the only photo he could find, a blurred security camera shot of her leaving a warehouse in Henderson. Even in low resolution, she looked like death in leather. He had 24 hours. But to do what? Apologize? Run to the FBI? Lawyer up? None of it would matter. Men like Volkov didn't make empty threats, and women like Ayana didn't need to. At 9 a.m., someone knocked on his door. Marcus opened it with his heart in his throat. She stood there alone. No backup. No visible weapons, just riding leathers and those dark, unreadable eyes. You're a tech guy, right? She said, walking past him into the penthouse like she owned it. Security systems, corporate networks, all that Silicon Valley magic? Yeah. His voice came out strangled. She dropped a manila file on his kitchen island. Good. You want to live? You're going to help me with something. Marcus opened the file with shaking hands. Victor Ruiz, Sinaloa cartel lieutenant. The photos showed a man in his 40s, expensive suits, dead eyes. He's running a trafficking pipeline through Nevada. Ayana said, pouring herself coffee from his French press without asking. Drugs, guns, people, moves locations every 72 hours. Paranoid, smart. Uses encrypted comms and shell companies to stay invisible. She looked at him over the rim of the mug. Dimitri wants him gone, but we can't find him. His digital footprint is complicated. Marcus's brain kicked into gear despite the fear. You need someone to map his logistics, trace the shell companies, crack the encryption, find the physical locations. Now you're getting it. That's illegal. That's hacking federal databases, financial institutions. And grabbing a Bratva enforcer's wrist is attempted suicide, she said flatly. But here we are. You have 48 hours. She set down the coffee, walked to the door, then paused. Or you can run. Buy a plane ticket. Disappear to some country without extradition. Her smile was surgical. Dimitri will find you in 72 hours. I'll find you in 48. The door closed behind her. Marcus stared at the file. Victor Ruiz. Human trafficking. Encrypted communications. He had two choices. Run and die tired, or prove he was more than the shallow playboy who'd grabbed the wrong woman's wrist. His fingers were on the keyboard before he realized he'd decided. 46 hours later, his eyes burned and his hands cramped. 3 pots of coffee, no sleep. Every backdoor his security startup had ever built, repurposed for digital hunting. Shell companies traced through 12 jurisdictions. Encrypted phones triangulated through cell tower data he shouldn't have access to. Financial transfers mapped like constellations. And there, hidden in plain sight beneath an LLC registered to a dentist's office in Henderson, the safe house. His phone buzzed. Address? Marcus sent the coordinates. 2 minutes later, maybe you're not useless after all. He collapsed into his chair, heart hammering, and realized that for the first time since the gas station, he felt alive. The text came at 2:47 a.m., tomorrow night, 3 a.m., you're coming. Marcus stared at his phone. Coming where? The safe house. You found it. You get to see what happens next. Every survival instinct screamed at him to say no, to block the number, to catch the next flight to anywhere. He texted back, I'll be there. The surveillance van smelled like gun oil and stale cigarettes. Marcus sat wedged between 2 men who looked like they crushed skulls for cardio, watching a bank of monitors showing thermal feeds of the Henderson safe house. Ayana's voice crackled through the comms, calm as a weather report. 3 hostels on the 2nd floor, 2 in the kitchen. Primary target should be in the northeast bedroom. We go in 90 seconds. Marcus's hands were sweating. Why am I here? One of the skull crushers grinned. Because Reaper wants you to see how the real world works, tech boy. On screen, Ayana moved to the front door with 4 operators behind her. Fluid, professional, terrifying. Breach in 3, 2... The door exploded inward. Then everything went wrong. Flashbangs detonated, not from Ayana's team, but from inside the house. The thermal feeds whited out. When they cleared, Marcus saw muzzle flashes strobing through every window. It's a trap! Someone screamed through the comms. Gunfire hammered the night. Ayana's voice cut through the chaos. Fall back to the... Static. Reaper, do you copy? Nothing. Reaper! Marcus's heart was a jackhammer. The skull crushers bailed from the van, weapons up, sprinting toward the house. And Marcus, stupid, terrified Marcus, followed. He didn't know why, didn't think. Just ran through smoke and screaming, through a side door hanging off its hinges, into a hallway strobing with gunfire. Someone grabbed him from behind, arm around his throat, steel pressed against his jugular. Stop moving or I open you up. A voice hissed in Spanish accented English. Marcus froze. He was dragged backward through smoke, into a back room lit by a single laptop screen. The blade never left his throat. Victor Ruiz was older than his photos, graying at the temples, but his eyes were exactly as dead as Marcus expected. Call Volkov, Ruiz said to someone off screen. Video. 30 seconds later, Dmitry Volkov's face filled the laptop. Sharp features, cold blue eyes, the kind of face that had ordered 1,000 deaths without losing sleep. "Victor," Volkov said. No emotion, just acknowledgement. "I have your tech, boy." Ruiz pressed the blade harder. Marcus felt it bite skin. "Send the Reaper, alone, unarmed, or I send him back in pieces." Volkov's expression didn't change. Marcus's vision tunneled. This was it. This was how he died, because he'd been too arrogant, too stupid, too used to getting what he wanted. Then Ayana's voice cut through the feed, calm as midnight. "No trade." Marcus's stomach dropped through the floor. "But I'm coming anyway." Ruiz smiled. "Alone, unarmed, 12 minutes, or he dies." The call ended. The room fell silent except for Marcus's ragged breathing and the distant pop of gunfire outside. 12 minutes. Ruiz's men zip-tied Marcus to a chair, blade still at his throat, and Marcus waited, heartbeat counting down seconds, wondering if the woman he'd grabbed at a street race was really about to die trying to save him. The front door opened. Footsteps in the hall, slow, deliberate, alone. Ayana walked through the doorway. No weapons, hands visible, eyes locked on Marcus. Then she smiled, and the lights went out. Darkness swallowed the room whole. Marcus heard Ruiz curse in Spanish, felt the blade leave his throat for half a second as the man barked orders to his guards. Then the screaming started, not from Marcus, from the hallway. A wet, choking sound, body hitting floor, silence. "Find her!" Ruiz shouted. Muzzle flashes strobed the darkness, 3 guards firing blind into empty space. Marcus squeezed his eyes shut, zip-tied hands digging into the chair arms. Another scream, cut short. Another body. The gunfire stopped. "Where is she?" Glass shattered behind them, window exploding inward. Marcus felt wind, smelled night air and cordite. A shadow moved across the laptop's glow. The guard nearest Marcus raised his rifle. His throat opened before he could pull the trigger. Ayana was a ghost, thermal optics on her face, blade in one hand, moving with the kind of precision that only came from doing this 100 times before. 4 guards down. Ruiz fired blind, 3 rounds into darkness. All misses. She came from above, dropped from somewhere in the ceiling, landed behind him, and had his own knife at his own throat before his magazine hit empty. "Lights," she said. One of Volkov's men hit the breaker. Fluorescence flickered back to life. Marcus blinked against the sudden brightness. 6 guards on the ground, all bleeding, none moving. Ayana hadn't taken a scratch. She held Ruiz on his knees, his blade pressed into the soft flesh beneath his jaw, angled up toward his brain. One push and he was done. "How?" Marcus's voice cracked. "How long was that?" 3 minutes, one of Volkov's operators said from the doorway, checking his watch. Maybe less. Ayana leaned close to Ruiz's ear. "Tell the cartel," she whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. "Nevada is closed." She released him. He collapsed forward, gasping. Then she crossed to Marcus, pulling a tactical knife from her belt. She cut his zip ties with 2 precise strokes. "You good?" Marcus stared at her. Blood spattered across her leathers, none of it hers. Her breathing was steady, not even winded. He tried to speak, couldn't, just nodded. She pulled him to his feet, steadying him when his legs nearly gave out. "Let's go." The ride back was silent. Marcus sat in the surveillance van, hands still shaking, replaying those 3 minutes in his head on loop. The darkness, the screams, the way she moved like death had learned to dance. Reaper. It wasn't just a nickname. It was a warning label. When they reached his building, Ayana walked him to the elevator. Dawn was breaking over Vegas, painting the sky in shades of blood orange. "You didn't have to come for me," Marcus said finally. She looked at him with those dark, unreadable eyes. "You didn't have to find the safe house, but you did." She pressed the elevator button. Dmitri doesn't keep people around who can't pull their weight. You pulled yours. The doors opened. Get some sleep, tech boy. You earned it. Marcus stepped inside, turned back. Why did you really come? You said no trade. Her smile was sharp. I said no trade because I don't negotiate. I solve problems. She tilted her head. You became my problem the second you touched my wrist, and I finish what I start. The doors closed. Marcus stood alone in the ascending elevator, heart still hammering, and realized 3 things. 1. He'd just watched a woman dismantle 6 armed men in under 3 minutes. 2. She'd done it to save him. 3. He was completely, utterly, dangerously fascinated. The woman at the gas station who'd ridden away into the desert night wasn't a conquest. She was a force of nature. And God help him, he wanted to see what happened next. The photos hit TMZ 36 hours later. Marcus Chen, tech wunderkind, standing outside a Henderson safe house. Crime scene tape, body bags, federal vehicles. The headline, Silicon Valley Golden Boy tied to organized crime syndicate. His phone exploded. Investors, board members, lawyers, all saying the same thing in different words. Cut ties, or we cut you. The emergency board meeting lasted 11 minutes. They gave him a choice: resign and sell his shares, or face a vote that would end the same way but destroy his reputation permanently. Marcus looked at the faces around the conference table. Men he'd worked with for 6 years. Men who'd celebrated his $40 million exit with champagne and congratulations. Now they looked at him like he was radioactive. I'll take the buyout, he said quietly. He liquidated everything, every share, every stock option, walked out of his own company with a check and nothing else. His CFO caught him at the elevator. Marcus, what the hell are you doing? This will ruin you. Marcus pressed the button, watched the numbers descend. No, he said, it'll free me. Dmitry Volkov's office overlooked the Vegas Strip from a building that officially housed a private security consulting firm. Marcus sat across from the man whose voice had nearly stopped his heart a week ago. You have skills I need, Volkov said in his precise, Russian-accented English. Encrypted communications, digital infrastructure, legal firewalls. You build this for me, you will be compensated appropriately. I don't want money, Marcus said. Ayana, standing by the window, raised an eyebrow. Then what do you want? Volkov asked. Marcus met his eyes. To matter. To build something that can't be taken away by frightened men in boardrooms. Volkov smiled. It wasn't warm, but it was real. Welcome to the family. 3 months later, Marcus had built a digital fortress, encrypted communications networks that made the Bratva invisible to surveillance, shell corporations so complex that federal prosecutors couldn't untangle them, legal structures that reclassified every operation under private military contractor law. When the multi-agency task force came, FBI, DEA, ATF, they surrounded Volkov's building with enough firepower to start a war. Marcus was ready. He triggered the countermeasure from his laptop. Every asset reclassified, every operation now protected under federal PMC statutes. The raid was technically illegal. The feds realized it 30 minutes in. They retreated. Marcus watched them go from Volkov's office, Ayana standing beside him. You just made prosecution impossible, she said quietly. I know. She turned to face him. Why did you really stay, Marcus? You could have run, started over somewhere clean. He looked at her. This woman who'd saved his life, who moved through violence like art, who'd given him a purpose when his old life crumbled. Because you're the first person who made me feel like I mattered for something real. Silence. Then she kissed him. 6 weeks later, they married in Montenegro. Private ceremony. Volkov officiated. No press, no fanfare, just vows exchanged on a clifftop overlooking the Adriatic Sea. 2 people who should never have met. a tech millionaire who grabbed the wrong woman's wrist at an illegal street race, a mafia enforcer who could have killed him but chose to save him instead. Now inseparable, partners, equals, ruling the shadows together. Marcus thought about that gas station sometimes, the Chevron on Highway 95, the way she'd ridden off into the desert night without looking back. He'd wanted to conquer her. Instead, she'd freed him. He flirted with the wrong black woman, and it was the best mistake he ever made.